Well, hello everyone, this is Chris with the Ancient Scholar. So I'd like to continue along the lines of organic chemistry, and what I want to talk about today, I want to talk about some of the common alkanes that we'll run into. Remember that the alkanes are hydrocarbons, carbon and hydrogen molecules, and they all involve single covalent bonding. Alkane, and of course we have alkenes and alkynes, which involve double and triple covalent bonds. So we'll be talking about the alkanes today. So there are several types of alkanes, and I'm going to talk about the eight most common ones that you'll run into in a chemistry class. And the way that we name these alkanes, we name them by the number of carbons in the molecule, and then that makes sense, right? The number of carbons that I have kind of determines the number of hydrogens that I have attached to the carbons, because the carbons kind of act as the backbone, and then the hydrogens come off of that. So the first and the simplest alkane is known as methane, and that is a CH4 molecule. And tell you what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and I'll draw that methane. And we have seen this before, so this should be pretty intuitive here, a CH4 molecule. So there I have methane, CH4, central one carbon. Methane has one carbon and 4 hydrogens around the outside. Okay, that is methane. The next alkane that we have is something called ethane. Ethane. Okay, and ethane has 2 carbons in it. Ethane looks something like this: a carbon, and we have 6 hydrogens coming off. Okay, so we have ethane, C2H6. I have my carbons, and then my 3 hydrogens, and of course these hydrogens aren't straight. These are kind of going to be going back a little bit, and that's going to be coming out. You have to kind of use your imagination to imagine the 3-dimensional structure to that. Okay, that's ethane, 2 carbons. Okay, the next of the alkanes, we have propane. And you guys should be familiar with these names. These are all gases that we used in some regards or another. Obviously propane, we know about propane stoves, and of course we know about methane, methane gas. So propane has 3 carbons. So methane 1, ethane 2, propane 3. So I have 1, 2, 3 carbons form the backbone, and then we have hydrogens attaching to all the carbons. I'll go ahead and draw this real quick, and we'll show you guys. Okay, so I have propane, 3 carbons, 1, 2, 3, and then I have all of my hydrogens coming off those carbons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. C3H8. Okay, that is propane. And then we move up from propane to butane, and you guys are familiar with butane. We have the butane lighter, the little lighters. So butane, and butane has, you guessed it, 4 carbons, and all single covalent bonds, because we are talking about an alkane. So the butane molecule will look something like this here. I'll draw that. Alright, so C4H, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. C4H10. So methane, 1 carbon, CH4. And tell you what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and draw these out real quick. So methane, CH4, okay, ethane, C2H6, propane, C3H8, and butane, C4H10. Alright, so those are the first 4 of the alkanes. The way that I remember these is actually kind of an ingenious saying, and it relates to a saying that I've talked about on this particular site earlier about white blood cells, the mnemonic that I kind of remember to help memorize all the 5 different types of white blood cells, and that's never let monkeys eat bananas: neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils, and basophils. Well, something very similar exists for memorizing the first 4 alkanes, and that is monkeys eat peeled bananas. So monkeys eat peeled bananas: methane, ethane, propane, and butane. 1 carbon, 2 carbon, 3 carbon, 4 carbon. And you can look at it again here and hopefully it'll make sense. Monkeys eat peeled bananas. Monkeys eat peeled bananas. Those are the first 4 of the alkanes. So methane, ethane, propane, butane. Every time I add a carbon, I add 2 more hydrogens, right? CH4 is methane, 1 carbon. And then I move to ethane, C2H6. I go from 4 to 6. And then propane, C3H8. C4H10, we talk about butane. Okay, so let's talk about the next 4. And these are actually fairly easy to memorize. The next 4. So I have methane, ethane, propane, butane, and the next one is pentane, and that has 5 carbons, okay, and I just think of pentagram, think back to, there we go, let me just write that down for you guys real quick. Think back to geometry. A pentagram has 5 sides, 5 carbons. The next one is hexane, and hex just means 6 carbons, okay, and I just think of maybe a hex nut. The next thing is heptane. Well, that's just 7 carbons. And then octane, and we know about octane, and that's 8 carbons, and I just think of oct equals 8, 7. Okay, so for the first 4, what I do is I just memorize monkeys eat peeled bananas, okay? That's methane, ethane, propane, butane. 1 carbon, 2 carbon, 3 carbon, 4 carbon. And then the next, I think of pentane. Well, pentagram, 5 sides, 5 carbons. I just think of pentagram. The next is hexane. That has 6 carbons. That's like a hex nut. Heptane with a P, 7 carbons, just 7. And then octane, you can think of in the octagon, if you're kind of into fighting and all that. The octane, 8 carbons. Octagram is 8-sided when we think about geometry. So that's how I remember it. Just 1 carbon all the way to 8 carbons. Those are the most common alkanes. Again, alkanes, all single covalently bonded carbons and hydrogens, and these always come up. So hopefully that's a pretty intuitive way of helping you guys memorize the alkane, the common, at least the first 8, the common alkane hydrocarbons. Okay, guys, as always, thanks for hanging in there.